Welcome to How We Heard It, the podcast about music, pop culture, movies, and more, with your hosts, Wayne Bledsoe and Chuck Campbell.
Welcome to the first episode of How We Heard It. This is a regular podcast with me, Wayne Bledsoe, and Chuck Campbell.
Hello.
And we are longtime music writers. We wrote for Scripps Howard News Service and the Knoxville News Sentinel together for
Couple
30
of decades
years,
at least, yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
About 30 years.
And
close.
you were writing before I came to Knoxville when I was in Florida, and I was writing in Florida.
In Daytona.
Yes, in Daytona Beach for the Cox News Service, and for a while there, New York Times News Service. And then we were on Scripps Howard News Service, and then when Scripps Howard was bought by Gannett, we were Gannett writers.
Right.
So
and when we argued constantly about music, and when we weren't arguing, we were talking about music.
Right.
So it's great to be back together again and be back getting ready to argue about music or discuss music. First thing we were going to talk about for this episode, because she's the biggest thing in the country right now, the biggest thing in music, is Taylor Swift, and all the folks who love Taylor Swift and the folks who hate Taylor Swift, and we have a long-time perspective on Taylor.
We absolutely do. Actually, you interviewed her when she was 16. That was
Right.
your first interview with her, and you flagged her down for me as someone I might be interested in, because typically I would be more likely to write about young women singer-songwriters. And I was dubious that you knew about her before I did, so I wasn't sure that she really would be all that. But you were talking about how I think you were impressed with her just as a person, as an interview,
Yeah.
even beyond just her music.
Well,
and go ahead.
Well, that was the thing was, when I got off the phone with her, and I remember we were sitting across from each other, and I said, that's the most together 16-year-old I've ever talked to in my life, because she was only 16 years old. Her first album was just about to be released. I think she had the single out, Tim McGraw, which was what we were talking about, and they'd sent me in advance the album. And she knew exactly what she wanted to do. She was writing or co-writing all her own songs, and she had a lot of talent. I mean, she was not a great songwriter at that point, but she was a good songwriter. But she had drive, and she knew where she wanted to go.
Right. I think that's something that was really set her apart, too. I mean, We've seen a lot of teens, especially teen girls, become stars, and they're completely just props of producers and older people. And you see they just get driven wherever. They're just in the back seat, and it seems like from the beginning, Taylor Swift's been driving the bus, even when she was young. And she started in country. Do you know why she started in country? Because she certainly...
Well, I think she started in country because, that was the music she was listening to, but everybody who was in country at that time was also listening to pop. So I don't know if it was in the back of her mind, okay, I want to switch over and become a pop artist later on too, but her music was fairly poppy. I mean, it was not as poppy as like Shania Twain or something like that. But I think that it was a good place for her, and that she was writing her own songs and writing about the stuff she was writing about. I mean, you think about her first single. I mean, it was about her boyfriend and her listening to Tim McGraw.
Right.
And every time she heard him, she thought of him. So it's kind of perfect country music for
a
teenage girl.
That was like 18 years ago now. So, the whole music industry's gone through a lot of changes over those years.
Yeah.
And she's probably been one of the reasons, or at least someone who figured it out and managed to manipulate it, Well,
what's interesting to me is, she is like, I really didn't think we were going to have more superstars, because everything's so fragmented now. Right. And then she just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and she doesn't lose her old audience, and she keeps gaining teenage girls. And folks like us who like her, I'm not crazy about Taylor Swift as far as listening to her music all the time, but she was somebody that, like, I could listen to her with my daughter when my daughter was growing up and feel good about it.
Right. And she's branched out too. I mean, she started with the relationship songs, which is common, especially in younger singer-songwriters. But she's more reflective and introspective, and she's grown as an artist as we've listened to her. And, I think that her big breakout was about 10 years ago when Shake It Off came out, right?
Yeah,
then
great song.
At that point, she went beyond country by far, and everyone knew who she was. And when I hear people now say, well, I've never heard a Taylor Swift song, it's like, no. Everybody's heard that one. Everyone's heard Shake It Off. It was everywhere.
Well, I have to say, what's funny is I talked with my girlfriend about Taylor Swift every once in a while because she's a high school teacher, and of course all her students are listening to Taylor Swift. And she said, oh, I like her all right, I guess, but she's just writing about teenage girl stuff. And then she realized that I can't think, it's the name of the song's going out of my head right now, the one she did with Iron and Wine. She realized that was Taylor Swift who was singing the duet.
Right.
And it's like, oh, I love that song.
Right.
So
and she's moving things forward with the people she collaborates with the people, when she was at the Grammy Awards, she pulled Lana Del Rey, who is another...
that you introduced me.
Yes, I introduced you to Lana Del Rey. I'll take that one. But, Lana Del Rey has a very specific niche, and, she's like very sensual and dark and... a
lot of sex.
A lot of sex, yeah. And that's something Taylor's pretty much avoided. Not that she's virginal or anything, but she's not selling sex. But she brought Lana Del Rey out on her acceptance speech for, I guess it was Album of the Year, and she said, that's Lana Del Rey. She's influenced more people in this room than anybody else, and Lana Del Rey was standing in the back like, oh my God, this is the last place I want to be right now. But, and they've done stuff together. Just last year, Lana Del Rey was on one of her songs, and she's always been good at recognizing other artists and lifting other artists. I think Ice Spice, the rapper, she released the song Karma on her last album, and I guess it didn't have enough oomph for her or whatever, but they went in and they put Ice Spice with some rapping in, and now Ice Spice, I mean, she already was someone anyway, but in a more limited audience. And once you're on Taylor Swift song, then everybody knows you. So it's been interesting to see her document relationships and just be philosophical about life. And it's more, she sings about friends, and she sings about, she's not always the victim or anything like that. It's very well-rounded self-awareness, and I think people can relate to that.
Well, that's one of the things I liked about her initially is like she was very empowering. It's not like, we talked about, the whole sex thing. It's like, I mean, nearly every teenage female singer winds up, when they discover sex, that's all they talk about. I mean, Janet Jackson went from "Let's Wait a While" to "Tie Me Up and Spank Me" in about 2 years. So,
well, I mean, look at go back to Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera. They were brought out, and they were like Mickey Mouse, club kids, and then they were almost sexualized immediately, and it was pretty uncomfortable because I don't even know if Britney Spears was 18 and she wasn't. Singing, and she's got everybody singing along, like little girls singing along to, I'm Not That Innocent and everything. It's like, oh, yikes, you shouldn't be pushing that, but that's just what happens.
Well, when I reviewed a Britney Spears concert one time, it was just really uncomfortable because you had like all these little girls, preteen girls, dressing up like little hookers, like Britney was dressing. Right. And they're like this whole stadium filled with little girls just bopping along, looking like, oh man, little harlots or whatever. It was harlots. Like, and it was like, it was just so strange. Right.
And go ahead.
And you go to a Taylor Swift concert, and it was not the same. Not that I'm not all for all women empowering, themselves and being whatever they want to be. But it was just like, it was so different going to one of those shows and going to like a Taylor Swift show.
Right. And I think, before and after those with more recently, Miley Cyrus, also Disney and Hannah Montana and all that. And as soon as she broke, she was doing, I don't know if you remember the video for We Can't Stop, but it was like, oh my God, it was basically an orgy, you know?
Oh, I do remember that one. I remember that one.
And, you know, she's just like dragging a coat behind her and humping and everything. It's like, wow, she couldn't wait to get that out. But, you know, I think for Miley, that may be a bit more natural for her because she's very much a wild child. She could have been a 70s star easily, you know. And
people, I mean, and she really can sing. People
she really
give her
can
credit
sing.
for what a good vocalist she is.
Yeah, she's got that husky voice and just lets it rip. And she did her homage to 80s music, and I think she did Heart of Glass. She's
and then she sang with the Flaming Lips.
Yeah. Yeah, so she's not been afraid of taking risks.
Yeah.
But I think a thing like that, a move like that for Miley Cyrus, it makes sense for her because she's carving out a specific demographic. Yeah. You know, and the same with Lana Del Rey, and the same with Lady Gaga, you know, and all these really popular singers, but they have a base that's a little more limited than what Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift is just wide open to America. That's her demographic.
But she's also the most hated person as far as all these people who just can't stand her.
Right. So, you know, and we've seen this happen over and over and over, especially directed at women singers. And I don't know what's really behind that, if it's just basic misogyny or whatever that runs throughout society and careers and social status and everything. But there's always been so much pushback against women singers, and I think Taylor Swift, you know, she hasn't really done the controversial things that, you know, I mean, I know when Ariana Grande licked a donut, that almost did her in. You know, she was with her friends, and they were at a donut shop in LA, I think, and she just picked up a giant donut and she licked it, and she said, "This is why America's fat." You know, she wasn't doing it to be out in public and everything. Yeah. I mean, she was backpedaling for the longest time over something like that. And Taylor Swift is just, she's, you know, she tried to stay apolitical, you know, I think starting in country, which is a bit more conservative than pop and, you know, other demographics or other genres of music. I think there was some assumption that maybe, you know, she's conservative or middle of the road. And she just she was following the Dolly Parton model. Right. You know, Dolly she knows she's got fans from one extreme to the other, from the furthest right to the furthest left, and all ages. And it's like, you've got to walk a fine line. And I think, you know, Dolly, you know, in her starting days and everything, that was okay. And people really didn't demand you take a stand if you didn't want to. And if you said, "Oh, I'm just an entertainer," everyone accepted that. And I don't think Taylor Swift I don't think today that's even allowed. You can't just state your opinion. You have to respond to everything else that's happening. And, you know, some of that's just, you know, political and social media and everybody trying to demand people, you know, make a stand on for anything and everything.
Well, people want you to, I think. But, I mean, I think Dolly's a real good example. You can tell a lot about what Dolly believes by her example.
Right. Exactly.
And, you know, but I guess you can ignore it and think, "Oh no, she's one of us."
Well, and they do ignore it. You know, I mean, they everybody's like, she probably just believes what I believe, and she's not saying anything to you know, make that feel like a delusion.
Yeah, but when she comes out and she supports Black Lives Matter,
yes, she did.
You know, or, you know, when she, you know, she may joke about, you know, women's rights or something like that, but you can tell what she's saying.
Well, I mean, there was when the 9 to 5 stars, which was Dolly and Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin, they came out, I think it was the Emmy Awards, and it was a few years ago, and it was Trump was president, or he had just won, and they came out, and Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin were just going at Trump, blatantly going at Trump. And there's Dolly standing there smiling. She may have said something like, "Oh Lord," or something like that, you know, and then she deflected it. She didn't, you know, she didn't say anything to contradict them, but she also didn't join in the punch down, you know.
Yeah, well, and the fact that, I mean, here in Knoxville, as a joke, Dolly entered a Dolly lookalike contest.
Right.
I can't remember.
It was a drag show, wasn't it?
It was a drag show. Yeah, it was a drag show.
Lost.
And she lost.
Right.
But, she's always been supportive of her gay fans.
Yep.
And, I mean...
And her far-right, conservative Christian fans, and just anybody who believes anything.
Yeah.
And she just, that got her into trouble during the Trump campaign because the New York Times did a Q&A with her. Mm-hmm. And they asked her, would she support Hillary Clinton as president? Now, you and I have known Dolly a long time, and we know how she talks and thinks and speaks, and how careful she is. And she said, of course I would support her as president, and something to the effect of, it's about time we had a woman president. Yeah. Well, the way the New York Times reported that, it looked like people were just taking it and running with it, saying she just endorsed Hillary Clinton. Right. And, the left wing was celebrating, the right wing was like condemning her and couldn't believe she would turn on them and everything. And, I know some people that work with Dolly and everything, and they got out a statement, and I was able to get that out there, along with some other journalists, where she said, she wasn't endorsing Hillary Clinton, that basically something to the effect of, anyone that the American people elect as president, she'll support as the president of the United States. I mean, what kind of diplomat is that? She's like, whatever crazy person or whatever you put in, I'm going to support them just because they're president of the United States.
Well, we both interviewed Dolly, and we know that every time you ask a question that's pointed like that, she deflects it immediately, or she says, I'm not going to answer it.
And
in a very nice way.
Yeah, she deflected it. She made a joke about it. She said, I would go into politics myself, except there are already enough boobs in politics, or something like that. So, Dolly. Yeah, and everyone felt better. I think everybody who was all fired up one way or the other, like, okay, well, maybe she's not the person you go to for, political endorsements, because she's never been one to do something like that. And I think it's going to be interesting for Taylor Swift, because I don't know that they'll let her off the hook so easily.
I don't think that Taylor really wants to be quite as apolitical as Dolly.
No.
I think that she is very much, we have to take a stand right now.
Right.
Because, women's rights are being threatened.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons, too, that some people on the right feel kind of threatened by her now.
Yeah.
Because,
they're terrified.
She kind of got her start in country, so that's always kind of maybe she's conservative, we'll see. And then I forget what happened, but there was some political thing going on. I think it was something Tennessee legislators were trying to push, some kind of anti-LGBT stuff. And she jumped up and she said, all right, everyone needs to vote. You need to vote. I mean, she took a stand then, and she made it. But I haven't heard that much. She's all about lining people up to vote, but she's not really saying who they have to vote for. But giving her life and what she has made a stance about. She's got people on the right a little spooked. That's
more than a little spooked. Give me a break. They're terrified of her.
Right.
They're absolutely terrified.
I think it's a conspiracy.
Yeah, and that shows how powerful she is right now. I mean, she's become a star when you wouldn't have stars this big. And I mean, when she says something, we were talking about it before we started talking on the podcast, how many people did you say started watching the NFL?
Yeah,
the Kansas City Chiefs.
Kansas City Chiefs, NFL. She's dating Travis Kelce, who's a player for the Kansas City Chiefs, who just won the Super Bowl. The Chiefs released a statement saying that they estimate she brought 5 million mostly young women fans to the Kansas City Chiefs who weren't fans before. 5 million. To a team in the middle of the country, not even like one of the premier, like the Patriots or the Cowboys or something like that, or the 49ers. That's just unbelievable, and it's just because she's dating a guy on the team.
Right.
So she has an awful lot of power, and people are afraid of power, and they're especially afraid and critical when it's a woman with power.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things. That's all the people who hate her. There are people who just hate somebody because they're popular,
right?
And we all go through that. Anybody who becomes a big deal. When I started as a critic, I was like, I wanted to not like certain people because they were so popular. Different than you, I know. We came from different backgrounds as far as coming into music, but there was a part of me that was like, oh yeah, I want to be cooler than that,
right?
And then you get honest, and it's like, well, no, that's stupid. If they're good, they're good.
Well, I mean, the big claim to fame was that you always discovered someone before they were big, and you liked their albums before they put out something that had a hit on it, and that you don't like them now, that other people have found them and like them. You know, that's just that was the old go-to.
But some people keep getting better,
right?
And that's the thing with Taylor Swift is I think you've got those people who just don't want to like her because she's so popular, but then they've got the other people who don't like her because she's a powerful female that's doing, I mean, I don't care what people say, she's a really, really good songwriter.
Yes,
she's a good artist overall.
Yes.
And they don't want to accept that. They don't want to acknowledge it.
Right. And again, women get demonized more than men do for these things.
Yeah.
And if she dates several guys, that's just unforgivable. But in the 70s, I mean, no, think about it. You know, you would have men in bands, and they would have a different one-night stand or multiple one-night stands every stop they made on their tour, and that was just fine. You know, and she dates a guy for 3 months and breaks up with him, and she's, you know, she's basically a hooker or something.
Yeah, I know.
So,
but it's funny, that's such a holdover from, I mean, back from the 40s, the 50s, whatever, that still hangs on.
Right. And she, I mean, that was, again, Shake It Off. You know, that was one of the things she made fun of right from the beginning. People say, I go on too many dates, and, you know, and she just moves on, and haters are going to hate. I mean, people still use that all the time. And they certainly have. And I think going back to the political thing, you know, there's so many conspiracy theories that she's going to cost Trump the presidency.
Well, it's a possibility.
Right.
It is a possibility.
I have a friend down in Florida who follows politics, and he said, do you think Taylor Swift would endorse Joe Biden? And I said, I don't know. I don't know, you know, if she goes that far. He said, well, do you think she would support him? I was like, of course, you know. I mean, she's not hiding who she is, but she maybe is a little hesitant to just jump into the fray, you know, because she is running a business, you know.
Well, I don't want to talk rumors particularly, but I have heard that she may be, you know, supporting some things for Gloria Johnson.
In Knoxville, okay.
Well, I mean, for the state.
You're right, state legislator Gloria Johnson, who's very much a Democrat.
And running against Marsha Blackburn.
Right, who's very much a conservative.
Well, you know, and I hate the word conservative because it's not really true.
I know.
Right wing.
I know, yeah, right wing. Okay, that's fair. I mean, there are different types of conservative.
Yeah.
We've certainly seen a variety of Republicans over the years, just like we have with Democrats. But I do wonder, though, what do you think could slow down Taylor Swift? I mean, she's 34. She's been having pop hits, like an amazing record-setting number of hits in the past 10 years. I think she's broken records by Elvis for the most number ones. I believe she's won the most best album awards at the Grammys. Like, any way you can measure success, she's breaking records that go back, you know, before we were born. Yeah. You know, so do you think she's built up? Because people do tend to, women especially, tend to fall off. You know, you still have the Rolling Stones or Willie Nelson out there, but not so many women that age, you know, perform anymore.
Well, and this is something we talked about before we started recording, was and you brought it up, that when women have kids, a lot of times they focus on the kids and they stop focusing on their careers.
Right.
And I mean, that it's sometimes guys do it, but rarely.
Right. Sometimes guys do it, sometimes women don't, but in general, it tends to be more of a threat to a woman's music career than a man's music career. And part of it's, you know, patriarchal society, and part of it's just the biological role of a woman, you know, and there are different reasons for that. But you do see women constantly. We just had Lily Allen, who's a really popular British singer, really smart ass, you know, funny, biting woman. And she had a couple of kids, and she just came out and said, I think it was this week or last week, she said that having kids ruined her career. And of course, now she's under fire because, like, why would you put that on your kids? Your poor kids are going to have to grow up with that. And that's not how she meant it at all. She said, I love my kids and everything. But you do see, especially women with an edge, a lot of times that edge gets diminished when, and part of that is the sexualization of stars. You know, once a woman becomes matronly, she's got to go with a different jag, you know, to sell herself sometimes.
Yeah, and it's, that is an interesting thing to think about. And try to pick out the women who have made it, past that sort of thing. I mean, I think about the biggest female star when I was a kid, when I was 12 or whatever, was Carole King. Mm-hmm. And Tapestry was like the biggest selling album of all time for a while, and I don't know how many years. But then she did a couple more albums that people caught on to, and then after that it was like nobody much cared about Carole King. She was a legend. Everybody loved her, but they all went back to Tapestry.
Right.
Of course, Janis Joplin died before she got to her peak even.
I did Courtney Love, where she toast once she had.
No, it wasn't after the kid really.
I was trying to remember if Chrissie Hynde had kids.
Yeah,
it seems like
she has a kid with Ray Davies from the Kings.
Okay, yeah. Okay, well she
kept going.
But you can look at how it impacted other women. You can look at Madonna, and when she had kids, she wasn't as popular, and she was suddenly she was playing catch up, like through the 80s and early 90s, she was leading the way for women singers in pop music and dance music and all that stuff. And then she became about relationships and about marriages and about kids, and she still was driven, to do music, but she lost, so much of the foundation she built, and she wasn't cutting edge anymore, and she was playing keep up, and she was trying to do new music with younger stars, and I mean, she has her past to fall back on, but I don't think she had a good album. Confessions on a Dance Floor, that was not too long ago. Right. Well, at this point, it's a long time ago too, but she's kind of been in a struggle. She's still going to have a big fan base, but she's not growing an audience by any means, and she doesn't have the younger fans, anymore. So I don't know if that affected her, but bringing it back to Taylor Swift, if she's moving, she's 34, she's dating a guy seriously. Right. The last guy she dated for several years. Everyone thinks she goes from one short relationship to another, but I think she was with him for 6 years. So she is, a little more stable when it comes to that.
Well, I got to interject something when we're talking about this. I interviewed her when she was 16, and then probably she was 19 or 20 the next time I interviewed her.
Right.
And I asked her about, I said, it must be tough for the folks that have dated you because they know they're going to show up in your songs. And she said, well, you have no idea how many secrets I put in there. It's like sometimes, like in our lyric sheets, she'll capitalize letters in odd places, and you put those letters together, and she's telling you something else.
Right. So I mean, that's the big game with her. It's like anytime she puts out an album, journalists and fans and everything are conjecturing, who this one's about and who that one's about, and she says sometimes they're composites of people or nobody. Right. But I mean, that's another trick she's got that keeps people listening to her. Yeah.
Well, I do think though that part of celebrity, part of musicians is you're fantasizing being them, or you're fantasizing being with them, whether it's male or female, either one.
Right.
And I think when people say, "Oh well, we're parents and we're older," a lot of that shine goes off, and it goes off quicker with women than it does with men because, men can still seem like they're catting around and everything.
Right.
I mean, Mick Jagger, for God's sake, is still singing about.
Oh, yeah. And people are like, oh, look at him.
Girls.
He's 84 years old and he's got a new girl.
And it's really creepy.
Kind of like,
yeah.
Is that really good? I think we all know what's going on there. It's not true love exactly.
Yeah.
So
thank goodness for Viagra and Cialis.
I guess so.
But yeah, I do think that's a big part of it with women is like, okay, suddenly, they lose this big sheen because they're no longer the person that person is thinking about dating or being.
Right. Well, I wonder, too, though, with Taylor Swift, she's been building an audience for so long. Yeah. A lot of these women are her age, so they're also, 35 or 40, or even beyond that, and she still has teenagers. Yeah. So, maybe she's got such a broad demographic. I see her as someone who's probably already planned for this and thought about it. I mean, did you see growth when she went from 16 to 19 in your two interviews with her?
Yeah, a whole lot.
did you sense, that she had the plan to move into pop and
at
it
that
was all
point, for sure, she definitely was planning on it then,
right?
And we talked about it, but
I think she's probably plotted out her whole life and how it affects her career, and she's made all the calls she's made have been right so far.
Yeah, and the great thing, and I mean, I've really enjoyed watching her get bigger and bigger because she deserves it.
Yeah,
and if anybody deserves
I agree.
it, she does.
Yeah, I mean, she knows her audience and she gives them what they want, and she's also getting in artistic statements, and she's also making points about life and things that people can take and relate to themselves. She's relatable. She's not and I think that's a problem some of the others run into, especially the ones who have niches. I wonder, I don't know, with her, she's just kind of this unlimited all-American kind of girl, and she hasn't sexualized herself, but she's also dating guys and having sex with guys, and it's just like she's very straightforward about it. But you'll see her in some high-waisted bathing suit or something. You're just like, okay, she's not in the thong, she's not, and that's good because so many women, just they get driven down that path. There's one now, I think her name is Tate McRae, and she's 20. And she's a good singer, and she's more of a Selena Gomez or Ariana Grande type, but she's very sexual already,
right?
Like extremely sexual, and she's singing a guy who's twice her age, and how she's had a couple of hits, but I'm like, what kind of future is she going to have though? How do you step back from that?
Well, but let's look at Lana Del Rey, where we were talking about before, because she started out as a folkie, right?
Yep.
And then she released, I can't remember what the name of the album was.
With video games.
Yeah. And it was just, holy hell, this is like, it's really explicit. It was just really frank,
right? And that's the thing too. She was from New Jersey, and she was trying to take this pop track, and then she moved to California and just became like this. You would never know she's not from Southern California,
right?
Because everything about her just screams that, and beaches, and the song Malibu, and palm trees, and sensuality, and she had that little period she got with some guys, some producers from New Jersey, I believe, and she just kind of burrowed down, and they recorded like 100 songs as she was like honing how she was going to reemerge. I think she was like Lizzie Grant or something when she first came out. I mean, it just sounded like, it's Debbie Gibson and Lizzie Grant, But she came out with this whole character. And the thing about her that I think has carried her on, because she's well into her 30s now, but it's all kind of surreal. And it's not that just putting it out there. It's this sort of, you're in this other world with her, and you don't know what's real and not real. And she's like a siren, and she's like, her whole spiel is like, she acts like she's catering to men and giving men what they want when she's got all the power in the relationship. Right. So there is a strength in what she's doing rather than just putting herself on the block, for any takers. So I appreciate that. But I don't see, I can see Taylor going, she can become that middle-aged singer-songwriter. She can become a woman who sings about her children, and if her fan base is still with her and they've been with her for so long now, they can relate to that.
The great thing is she has enough money that it's not going to really matter.
It's not going to matter. It's not going to matter. And I can see her easily. I can see her producing and promoting new singers. Yeah. And because she's always been real supportive. Like when I said, she brought Lana Del Rey up on the stage when she won the Best Album Grammy. I can see her doing that. She's constantly. I think she had one little scrape with Katy Perry back in the day.
I remember that.
And one of them, I don't remember which one it was, but one of them took the other one's dancers for a show. And it was a little bit of a scrap, but it wasn't a big one, and they were friends. But people just kept pumping that up. Yeah. I know she's real close with Selena Gomez, and I can see her. We can talk about who's going to be the next Taylor Swift, because Taylor Swift is very much a millennial. She's 34. She's been doing this a while. can anyone ever achieve that and climb the kind of mountain she did? It's going to be really hard, so I wouldn't expect it. But I do see, I know I've mentioned her before, but I think the two out of the gate Gen Z women singers are Olivia Rodrigo and Billie Eilish.
Yeah.
I see Billie Eilish as a really compelling singer, but she's more of that niche that I was talking about, where you've got someone like Lady Gaga or someone who's just kind of really solid fan base, but not really widely accepted in the mainstream.
But I think, but she's another one though. I think when people hear her, they generally like her, even though they may not know that that's who they're listening to.
Right. Well, she's when she does faster songs, and she could do the sexual thing too. I mean, her shtick when she came out as a teenager was, she wore baggy clothes. I mean, everything to hide any kind of sexuality at all. She was like really embracing this misfit who, just dressed in unattractive or not goth clothes, but like outsider clothes, and like that gal that knows more than anybody else and is really biting, but you kind of aren't comfortable around her. And she would dye her hair different colors and such. But every now and then she'd come out with a song. He's like, wow, she's a really attractive person, and she's got, but and she had a song, I think it's called Oxytocin, which is like one of the most seductive, surprising like dance songs, just out of the blue. She has an advantage that her older brother Phineas is a fantastic producer, and they've worked together their whole lives, and they got really supportive parents. She's very Southern California, and so is Olivia Rodrigo. I'm all in on Olivia Rodrigo. She's kind of like this old school rocker kid. I've seen interviews with her and all of her album collections, stuff from the 70s and 80s, and she used Elvis Costello on a song, the first song of her first album.
That's great.
She used a riff from him. Oh, he thought it was great too. And they're marketing her. You can see the reach of the record labels are kind of filtering her into this kind of mopey ballad kind of demographic. So she does those songs, and she does them well.
Right.
But she's got this rock edge, and she just finds a way to work it in all the time. And I like her persona, whereas like Billie Eilish was sort of the smart misfit with a lot of self-doubts. Olivia Rodrigo's like that cheerleader who really doubts herself, even though she's in her little half shirt and skirt and all this stuff, and a really attractive girl, but she's got all these just messed up head and everything. And that kind of girl's out there too. And I think that makes her sort of charming, and she's got a good sense of humor, and she's pretty she's not over sexualized either, like Taylor Swift. So I could see her following track there, and I could see Taylor maybe lifting her, or Taylor kind of becoming more of a producer and doing like what the men do when they kind of factor out as active artists and they become producers and such.
Well, we talked about Dolly before. It's interesting to compare, what Dolly's career has been and how she was, because there's a similarity in that Dolly started in country, and then she took over pop, and then she became huge.
Right.
But she's had her ups and downs after that.
Right.
And there was a point where country radio was just not playing her.
Right.
And she recorded a couple of bluegrass albums, or one was pretty much a bluegrass album. The other one was more just kind of a folky thing. So she went on like the Americana market stations. And, and now I don't know that she sells. I think she sells more than she was before, but she's so beloved, it just doesn't matter.
Right.
Anything she does, people are going to buy because they love her.
Right. She transcends her music.
Yeah, she does. The people who don't like her music like her.
Right. A lot of people are like, oh, I really like Dolly. Oh, I don't know, I like all of her songs, but she's just, as a celebrity, she's like one of the most beloved, most untouchable ones out there.
Maybe the most beloved person around the world, because people know her all over the world.
Right. Yeah, I've gone to other places. I've traveled to Africa and South America and Eastern Europe and stuff, and people ask me where I'm from, and I'm like, you're not going to know Tennessee. And people always say, well, if you're from Tennessee, just say, that's where Elvis is from. It's like, well, we're East Tennessee. Elvis is like from way, way, way far away from East Tennessee, So I would throw out Dolly Parton, and I can't believe how many people are just like, oh, that's how I learned English, was listening to Dolly Parton. And that's how, and it's like she's she's just appreciated for her spirit. You know, she's really got this benevolent spirit, and she's such a philanthropist, you know.
Well, one of the things you're talking about, the people who paid attention to her, Kinky Friedman told me this, and then I told it to the Dolly's America podcast people when they did that. But Nelson Mandela's favorite artist to listen to while he was in prison was Dolly Parton.
I believe it.
Yeah,
I totally believe that. You know, it's just there's just a comfort there. She's nurturing. She's like a mom. She's like a sister. You know, she's like a guardian angel.
Yeah,
and you know, she really brings out the best. And like you say, she will. She avoids just being caught up in every hot topic of the day, and she's not going to weigh in on most things. But you're right. She did with Black Lives Matter. She did finally come up and say, you know, what was it? She said something like, our little white asses aren't the only ones that matter. Of course, Black Lives Matter.
And look what she did. I mean, look what she did with the money that she got from Whitney Houston's version of
Yes,
I Will Always Love You. I mean, she supports the black community in Nashville.
Yes, an underdeveloped Nashville neighborhood. She was putting all this money that she made off Whitney Houston singing her song, you know. And recently, we haven't talked about Beyonce yet, but, you know, I think she kind of factors in as someone who's sort of a rival to Taylor Swift with her reach, you know, and she's been going on for a long time. And she gets kind of a double whammy pushback because Taylor Swift gets it as a woman and Beyonce gets it a woman and a woman of color. Right. So, and when she was staying in her lane, so to speak, doing, you know, R&B or hip hop or whatever, that was fine. But she did this country song, and you know, Beyonce is from the South, like the deep South. I think one of the songs, her parents are, I think one's from Alabama and one's from Louisiana, right? And she grew up in Texas, you know, so she's been around this. It's not just something she co-opted from somewhere else, but there was so much blowback on her doing a country song, but eventually it was number one. The radio did start playing, but so many people were mad about it. They didn't think she had any right being in country music.
That's so silly.
And I know. And then Dolly Parton hinted that Beyonce asked her if she could record Jolene. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden people are like, oh, wait, you know, I love everything about Dolly Parton, but I'm always looking for an excuse to pick on Beyonce. Where do I fall in this, you know? And it's just kind of like, I think it'll be awesome, you know? I think it'll be very different from Dolly's version. But you know, Dolly recognizes that cross-genre thing, that genre thing. This when she was nominated 2 years ago, and she was nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I had a little sit-down conversation with her about it. And, you know, I said, oh, congratulations on being nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And she's just like, oh, gosh, you know, I'm not rock and roll. I shouldn't be nominated. I don't belong in there, you know. And I was like, well, sure you do. And she goes, no, I'm not a rock and roll singer. And I said, well, it's not just for songs you've done. I mean, it's songs you've recorded and songs you've written. And, you know, there are rock people who've done your songs.
Oh, yeah,
a lot of your songs have been out there. And she's just kind of looking at me, and it's like, I think she was trying to digest it. And she tried to pull out of it. And the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame said, no, we can't really do that. So it's like, you're stuck. You're being voted for. Deal with it. You know, so she decided that she was going to do a rock and roll album so that she could deserve it, you know. But when I was talking to her, I said, you know, I really want to see you, because Eminem was also nominated and inducted the same year she was. I said, I really want to see you and Eminem, you know, on stage together. I said, that would be the greatest, you know, kick to see the two of you perform or something. She said, oh, I love him. And she said, but he doesn't deserve to be in there either. She said, he's not rock and roll. And so anyway, I was worried that she was going to try to get out of it, or there'd be something, but then Rock and Roll Hall of Fame just said, really, you don't have any option here. And, you know, and so they just inducted her. But I didn't ever see her. I don't think she and Eminem were on stage together. So that was the down.
Well, I think Dolly has she has sort of an old-fashioned view of what rock is. And,
yes.
You know, rock.
Well, and that's something that goes on.
That's different.
You know, that's something that goes on, and that relates to the pushback that Taylor Swift gets. That's the pushback that I think Cher's nominated for Rock and Roll Hall of Fame now. And it's like, well, why not? You know, I mean, it's like, but one of the reasons there is that there aren't rock bands like there used to be.
Not
you know,
many.
there's always rock bands, but as far as them just dominating the music scene, they don't. You know, there aren't even that many bands. I was trying to think and came up with, I don't know, maybe 10 prominent bands that have formed since, I think the oldest one is 1998. But they're just, new bands aren't really coming out anymore. And it's not, there are rock elements and there are guitars, but there's just such more collaboration, and that genre line has been more blurred than it used to be. It used to be the dominant genre, without question.
Well, I think you have to look. I mean, it's been more underground now. I mean,
yeah,
and
yeah.
When we're talking about Dolly and rock bands covering her, the White Stripes covered Jolene,
right,
very famously,
right,
and I mean they're a rock band,
right.
But I think you're right. More and more you have to go digging. It's not the thing that's at the top of the pops right now.
No, it's if Taylor Swift has a new album, the top 10 songs will be the 10 songs on that album. She dominates that much, you know. And you'll see Olivia Rodrigo poking in there. You'll see Tate McRae. Right. You'll see, you'll still see some guys. There are some guys in the music, but women are by far the dominant force in music now, popular music.
Which is interesting because when we started writing, it was not the case.
Right.
When we were kids, it wasn't the case. I mean, when we were kids, it was like you had Janis Joplin.
Okay, I don't remember her.
Well, I know you're young.
I mean, I know you're a little younger than slightly me. Older, and plus you were more into music than I was as a kid, so you were a little ahead of me and more interested in, you know.
Yeah, I was interested in all that stuff, but it was like you had Janis Joplin, you had Joni Mitchell, you had Carole King, and
well, you had like Karen Carpenter. You had like more passive women too. I mean, Janis Joplin obviously wasn't passive,
right?
But and they weren't. I don't know. I mean, were there before disco and everything? You had Motown, and you had, but again, these were like Diana Ross was completely manipulated by her producers. It was again. Most women, the ones who did find their way as singer-songwriters, were more of the exception than the rule.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it was interesting because you always had more women on your top 10 of the year list than I did. And I remember the year that it was 50-50 on my list.
Right.
And it was like, yeah, boy, I can see a real sea change happening here.
Right.
Finally, you've got this many women that are coming out and, in every genre.
Right.
Because I think that year, it was Mary Gauthier was on my top of the list, and
is it Madeleine Perrault of
Madeleine Perrault
jazz?
may have been there, and it would have been maybe Innocence Mission, which is led by a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, did you see the Grammy Awards this year? The best album? I think it was 7 out of the 8 nominees were women for album of the year.
Yeah.
It's just like this unbelievable, I forget who the guy was. He
Yeah,
was the novelty,
shift. Yeah.
And I mean, and Taylor Swift won, but you had Miley Cyrus, and you had all of them. I mean, you had SZA, she's great. But
that's one of the things. That's another one of the things that people like Taylor Swift have done. I mean, we saw a little bit of it in the punk era. We talked about Chrissie Hynde and people like that. I mean, she was a badass, and nobody can deny what a badass she was.
Right.
But now you have all these young women who see Taylor Swift and Billie Eilish and all this other, and they're coming up, and even on the local scene, I see it's at least 50-50 with the artists that I see that are great singers and songwriters. It's 50% women,
and it should be that way.
Yeah, it should be that way.
It wouldn't be that way.
But now you have all these people that they have as examples, and they can look and say, "Oh yeah, that could be me."
I know you've heard me say this before, but nothing floors me more than when people say, "Oh, I don't really like women singers," especially when it's a woman saying, "I don't like women singers." Yeah. It's like I don't understand that mentality. I mean, I obviously don't have their, but there was the old school. It was like rocker. It was more of a male industry because the women wanted to date them and the men wanted to be them.
Right.
And so that, the men would form bands in their garage and all of that stuff. And the women just kind of, maybe they'd pick up a tambourine. You'd have bands like Fleetwood Mac might come along, or you'd have some crossover from someone like Tina Turner or something like that. But it was just male group, male soloist, and then a woman, maybe, you know.
Well, it's so funny because, I mean, when I interviewed Amy Mann one of the times, and I know she's one of your favorites.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But when she went solo, she told me she went to a record company, and they were considering signing her. And then they said, well, we decided not to because we already have a female singer-songwriter.
Oh, my God.
And she was like, what am I, talking dog act? You know, it's like...
That, you know, it's funny because I talked to her when that was happening. I talked to her in Florida. She came to do a concert there, and I did an advance phoner with her. And then Rolling Stone reviewed her album. And I still can't believe this happened, but they literally said they didn't buy, you know, she has downbeat music and sad themes and everything. And the reviewer actually said, how are we supposed to believe that a woman that looks good could feel that bad? They literally wrote her off as
Lord.
She's just too pretty to be believable as someone who's sad, you know.
Wow.
And then I saw her. It's like I had interviewed her before she came, and then when she came for the show, it was at the band shell on the beach, and she was backstage. And the whole band was split up. I saw all the guys in the band, but every one of them was somewhere else. I thought, oh, this isn't good, you know. And it was before they broke up. And then she was in the green room by herself, and she just was super nice and just real approachable. But I said something. I said, you know, what did you think of that Rolling Stone review? And she just unloaded these expletives and everything. And she said, can you believe that? She said, you know, I'm putting all my effort into this. I'm writing these lyrics and doing my best and everything. It's like, oh, wait, you look like that. Sorry, we're not going to buy it, you know. So,
well, I have to say that, you know, as a critic, when I would get an album in and it would be a woman who was just beautiful, I would think, oh, okay, this may not be good. Because, I mean, so much of the time that's what they were selling. They weren't selling the image. And if the woman was kind of homely looking, I'd think, yeah, that's probably going to be pretty good. Because, I mean, they weren't signing
because
her.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I mean, you know that her talent had to get her there. Yeah. You know, I mean, you could get somewhere if you're a beautiful woman or man.
Yeah. Well, you know, when Shania Twain's first album came out, it wasn't very good. But she came in the office. Yeah, I did an interview.
I met her too.
You were there. And then that second album came out, and it was like I didn't listen to it for a little while because they sent a calendar out with it of her in like these sexy poses. And I thought, okay, here we go. This is what they're selling. And then you listen to the album, it's like, well, this is pretty good.
Right. Well, I remember they brought her through, and being the activist that I am, and she was wearing a fur coat, and I was like, I don't know who she is, and I don't care who she is. So I've made some mistakes, you know, and not getting to know people and everything. But then she seemed very genuine, very, sweet nice. When she was talking to everybody, and it's like, well, she's from Canada, and she's even
Native American.
Native, yeah. So it's like I felt ashamed for criticizing her. Yeah. I didn't criticize her to her face or anything.
No, she was
no red paint was thrown, but well,
she was great.
I think we should, when we talk about people pushing back,
right?
A lot of people just do that because someone's popular. Mm-hmm. And I hate to say this because, you know, I'm getting older myself, but a lot of it is a lot of people don't listen to new music anymore. They just hit a stage in their life where they're not open to it. And some people are always open to it.
Right.
And I think that when younger people come along and they're popular, it's threatening to people who are getting older, and they feel like they're missing out, and they feel like they're being replaced, and they validate themselves just by criticizing someone. Yeah. And you know, you see that all the time in social media. It'd be like, you know, Taylor Swift sells 10 million. People say, who? It's like, really? You don't know who she is? I mean, is that really, you know?
Well, I think we should do a whole episode on that.
Yeah, we could revisit that. And I would like to revisit, too, why women especially get the blowback.
Yeah.
Because there's just, you know, from men and from women, which just unbelievable.
Well, I think that I think we ought to, before we're done, I think we ought to recommend somebody. So female, since we're talking about female artists in particular, we ought to recommend someone that people might not know about that they should check out.
Well, who would you go with?
Well, I'm going with somebody really old.
Oh,
somebody from the past that people don't know about.
Okay.
So I'm Well, I mean, because I know that more of the old stuff, you know more of the newer stuff.
Right,
I think
right.
But I want to recommend people go and check out a woman named Judy Sill. It's Judeesill.
Okay.
And she wrote a song called Jesus Was a Crossmaker that a lot of people covered. But she was the first person signed to Geffen Records because David Geffen thought that Laura Nyro was going to go with him on his label because he was her manager. And she stayed with Columbia Records, and he found somebody else. And who he found was Judy Sill, who has the craziest biography you will read. And she was arrested for armed robbery when she was a teenager. She got put into a reformatory school where she learned how to orchestrate. And her songs and albums, she's only recorded 2 albums officially, and they're beautiful. And she's somebody that everybody should listen to, should check out and be familiar with, even though she's pretty much unknown.
All right, that's good. I'm going to go the opposite direction. I've already talked about Olivia Rodrigo, and I know a lot of people don't know her. She's still just 21. She's still just had 2 albums out, but she's on track at this point, to do the best she can to be the next Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, I mean, even millennials haven't heard that much of her, and that she's been dismissed. And I think a lot of people from the 90s who liked Alanis Morissette, or they liked Riot Girls, if you get past the main songs that they put out, the ballad stuff that they're kind of making her do, and you listen to the other songs, she's infectious and she's funny, and she's like Taylor Swift. She's not the best singer, but she has a very distinct voice, and she deserves your attention, because she's looking best so far from that whole generation. And there are a lot of other great ones too, but I think she's got the best breakthrough. So don't wait 10 years before you finally hear a song by her.
Well, you made me listen to her, and I thought she was great.
Yeah. I made you listen to more of the rockish stuff. All right. Anything else we wanted to go in here? We were talking about maybe having a segment. Maybe we'll add this later on how we saw it. The name of our podcast is How We Heard It.
Right.
But you and I both watch movies and TV all the time, and we used to not argue about that like we did about music.
Uh-huh.
And we haven't argued that much about music today, but I know we will.
Oh, we will. We definitely
Trust,
will.
we will. There are some things that we just will never see eye to eye on. But do you have any recommendation for? I can go with one.
You start out.
Okay. Well, so Emma Stone just won Best Actress for. Oh shoot, that name, the movie. How did that?
Poor Things.
Poor Things. Yes. And she's always done a lot of great work, and she's in a show now that if people haven't seen, it's called The Curse, and it's with what's his name, Nathan Fielder. And they play this couple that goes to a town, a small, underprivileged town in New Mexico. And they make a documentary about how they're going to help their lives and get these people jobs, and also create an environment that's very green and family, or not family, and environmental friendly. And the thing is, as it goes along and comes out, both of these people are just absolutely neurotic. And her parents, Emma Stone character's parents, were actually slumlords in this same town, and they still live there. And it starts coming out more of these things about her, and you realize that they are, the documentary they're doing is, they play completely different characters when they're talking to the cameras and what they're trying to do than they do when they talk to each other, and they're just neurotic. It's a dark humor. I've seen 5 or 6 episodes so far. It's on Showtime and Hulu, and I think all kinds of streaming services too. But it's great. It really shows more of her range. I mean, she's really becoming maybe the Meryl Streep of the millennials, because she was in La La Land, and she's been in a lot of things that we've seen, and she's got all kinds of character. But this one, where she's playing someone, in the earlier episodes, her husband is the crazy one, and he's hot-headed, and they're just like trying to smile all the time at everybody, and they're just dying inside and ready to go fight each other. But then as it goes along, you find out that she's even crazier than he is, and it's a lot of fun, and it's kind of poignant. It's just good to see her just like really make this role.
Then I'll suggest, I think it was nominated for Best Picture, and I think actually you were the person who turned me on to it, the movie Past Lives.
Yes, that's a great one.
Which is a story of a couple of Korean kids that sort of have a little childhood romance, and then they wind up with the girl goes to the United States, and then they reconnect later. And it's funny, I just saw one of my friends on Facebook saw it and just hated it, just thought it was the most boring thing ever.
No way.
And it was
it's subtle. It's a subtle movie.
It's very subtle, but it's very real.
It's beautiful. I love the way the story's told. And I love, she's married too. When her old boyfriend from Korea comes, she's married to an American. And it just has a beautiful message, and everybody does go back and look at their lives and wonder what might have happened in their childhood if this had happened or that had happened, and how dramatically it would have changed everything.
Right. And you've got that question. I mean, that was one of the things that after we watched it, Sarah, my girlfriend, and I watched it together, and we talked about it for about an hour afterwards about, what would this have been like? Would it, what would you have done?
Right. Right.
And it makes you think, and it's really sweet, and like you said, very subtle, and I thought it was wonderful.
I did too. I really did. It was very realistic, and like I say, it was subtle. There were no big dramatic things that happened, in their lives or anything, but it's just like wow, what would have happened if I'd stayed in Korea and she had married that guy? Well, how would everything be different? And it would have been a lot different.
Yeah.
But they also realize how they've changed too over time. So it's I think anyone can relate to it if they don't just sit there and wait for a gunfight or something and get bored. It's like, sorry, there are no guns. But some movies are like that.
Even though we're agreeing on pretty much everything tonight. We do agree on movies more than anything else, but we will argue about a lot of things.
Yes.
In the future.
Yes. Yes, we will. Promise. Anyway, I guess that's it.
Yep. Join us next time.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
You've been listening to How We Heard It with Chuck Campbell and Wayne Bledsoe, a podcast about music, art, culture, movies, whatever they want to talk about. How We Heard It was recorded in Knoxville, Tennessee at the Arbor Studio by John Baker. If you believe you've been abducted by aliens during the listening to this podcast, we take no responsibility for that. How We Heard It is a Tear Owl production, and if you'd like to reach out to Chuck or Wayne, send an email to howweheardit@gmail.com. Come on back next week and we'll have another show for you.